If I had to judge a man's future, I would not ask how motivated he is. I would ask what level of success he is trapped inside. Most men never fail dramatically. They simply remain loyal to a level they were supposed to outgrow. They sell time when they should be building skill. They build skill when they should be producing proof. They produce proof but never convert it into leverage. They gain leverage but never turn it into ownership. And then they wonder why life feels like movement without ascent. There are 5 levels of success: survival, skill, proof, leverage, ownership. But the real danger is not being at the bottom. The real danger is defending the level that is quietly controlling you, because every level rewards a version of you that must eventually die. The survivor must become skilled. The skilled man must become visible. The proven man must become strategic. The strategist must become an owner. So the question is not whether you are ambitious. The question is, which level are you still loyal to because it once made you feel safe? Machiavelli would not ask if you are a good man. He would ask whether you understand power well enough to stop being ruled by men who do. Because weakness is not always natural. Sometimes weakness is trained. You were trained to ask for permission, trained to wait for support, trained to believe effort would be noticed, loyalty would be rewarded, and good intentions would protect you. Machiavelli would call that innocence. And innocence, in a world ruled by interest, is expensive. Machiavelli was not a motivational writer. He was a man who studied consequence. He saw rulers lose power because they trusted affection. He saw men change loyalty when interest changed. He saw appearance defeat private virtue. He understood that the world does not measure your pain before it measures your position. In The Prince, Machiavelli writes, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." That line is not about vanity. It is about reality. Most people do not experience your inner struggle. They do not measure your private suffering. They do not see the future you imagine. They see signals, results, strength, weakness, status, proof. This is why the unsupported man must stop begging to be understood. The world does not reward the man who explains himself. It rewards the man who becomes undeniable. Level 1, survival. Survival is the first level. There is no shame here. A man needs food, a man needs rent, a man needs immediate cash. There is nothing powerful about pretending hunger is spiritual. A man who cannot pay his bills does not need fantasy. He needs pressure, order, and a way out. Machiavelli understood necessity. In Discourses on Livy, he wrote, "Men never do good unless necessity drives them. The doctrine is simple. Comfort rarely reforms a man. Pressure does. Necessity removes fantasy. It forces action. It strips away excuses. It reveals what a man can tolerate, what he fears, and what he will obey when his life becomes narrow. But the same force that awakens a man can also trap him. That is the danger of level 1. Survival can save your life, then quietly become your identity. At level 1, a man sells time because he needs immediate money. Again, no shame. But staying here forever is dangerous because time is the raw material of power. If every hour is sold only to survive today, nothing remains to build tomorrow. This is how men become tired but not stronger, busy but not freer, responsible but still owned. They work, they pay, they recover, they repeat. And slowly, the system trains them to mistake exhaustion for progress. Machiavelli would not romanticize this. He would ask one question: who controls your necessity? Because the man who controls your necessity controls your obedience. If you cannot survive without the paycheck, The paycheck becomes more than income. It becomes discipline. It becomes fear. It becomes a chain with respectable language. Most men at this level are told to be grateful, be realistic, keep your head down, do not risk too much. Take the safe path. But safety often has an owner. It is easier to control a man when his life is one emergency away from collapse. If he has no savings, he obeys. If he has no skill, he accepts. If he has no alternatives, he tolerates disrespect. If he has no proof, he cannot bargain. This is why survival is not neutral. Survival without an exit plan trains submission. And submission becomes normal when repeated long enough. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that it is safer for a ruler to be feared than loved when one must choose, because love depends on obligation, while fear depends on consequence. The point is not to become cruel. The point is to understand that human behavior is often governed less by affection than by pressure. Modern life works the same way. Your employer does not need to hate you to own your time. Your bills do not need to be evil to command your behavior. Your obligations do not need to be unjust to keep you obedient. Control does not always arrive with chains. Sometimes it arrives as monthly expenses. The cold truth is this: survival is not failure. But survival without an extraction plan becomes submission. At level 1, your task is not to look powerful. Your task is to reclaim enough force to leave the level. Reclaim time. Reclaim attention. Reclaim cash. Reclaim health. Reclaim energy. Reclaim discipline. This does not mean quitting recklessly. Machiavelli despised fantasy. A prince does not abandon a fortress before securing another. So the survival man must ask better questions. What hours can I protect? What expense weakens me? What habit steals attention? What skill could raise my market value? What proof can I build before anyone believes in me? The goal is not to escape work. The goal is to escape helplessness. The survival man says, I just need to get by. The strategic man says, I will survive while building the weapon that gets me out. That is the shift. You are not a victim because you are surviving. But you become a prisoner when you start defending survival as destiny. Level 1 is a shelter, not a throne. Do not decorate the cage. Build the exit. If you're the kind of man who is done pretending motion is progress, stop confusing survival with growth. You already know you are capable of more, but your problem is that your daily life is consuming the energy needed to build your escape. If you keep selling every hour only to stay alive, you will wake up older, tired, and still owned by the same pressures. Inside Patreon, you get deeper, unfiltered studies on power, discipline, leverage, and self-command, so you can stop waiting for permission and start building with strategy. This is not for men who want comfort. It is for men who are ready to rise without applause. The decision is yours. But survival alone does not make a man powerful. The next level begins when he stops selling hours at the lowest price and begins increasing the value of those hours. That level is skill, and skill is the first escape from helplessness. Level 2, skill. Most men think effort is enough. It is not. Effort is only respected when it produces value someone else needs. The world does not reward your suffering. It rewards your usefulness. That is level 2. Skill. Skill is the first rebellion against helplessness because the unskilled man depends on mercy. The skilled man begins to negotiate with value. At level 1, you sell time. At level 2, you increase the price of your time. This is progress. But it is not freedom. A skilled man can earn more. He can be hired. He can become useful. But if he does not understand power, he can still remain owned by the structure that pays him. This is where modern men get trapped. They become competent but politically naive. They think good work will speak for itself. It will not. Machiavelli writes, "Men in general judge more by the eye than by the hand," meaning people judge what they can see before they verify what is real. They judge signals before substance, appearance before depth, evidence before intention. A man can be skilled and still invisible. A man can be talented and still underpaid. A man can be useful and still treated as replaceable if his usefulness is hidden inside another man's system. This is the tragedy of level 2. Skill gives you value, but not automatically power. Look at Cristiano Ronaldo. Before the global fame, before the trophies, before the brand, there was a boy from Madeira. No empire, no protection, no status large enough to speak for him. Sporting CP records that Ronaldo arrived in Lisbon from Madeira at only 12 years old after being invited for trials at the Sporting Academy. That detail matters. He did not remain where his ambition was comfortable. He entered a bigger arena before he had global proof. He had to leave the environment that understood him. He had to compete where potential meant nothing without performance. He had to become serious before the world had a reason to treat him seriously. He submitted his life to skill, training, repetition, competition, performance, standards. But skill alone was not enough. Ronaldo's skill had to become visible under pressure. The world did not reward the idea of Ronaldo. It rewarded the evidence of Ronaldo. That is Machiavellian. Not because it is inspiring, because it is cold. Men do not judge your potential. They judge what your potential can prove. Skill is the first escape, but hidden skill is still weak. This is where many unsupported men fail. They learn, they improve, they get better, but they stay hidden, they stay quiet. They hope competence will be discovered. They confuse humility with invisibility. And invisibility is dangerous, because value that cannot be seen can be ignored, or stolen, or underpriced, or used by men who understand presentation better than you understand power. Machiavelli's lesson is not to fake it. That would be shallow. His lesson is colder. Reality matters, but appearance controls access to reality. If your skill is real, then hiding it is not humility. It is strategic failure. Your skill must become visible. A portfolio. A portfolio. A record. A result. A performance. A public body of work. A reputation. A signal. Because until skill becomes proof, the market treats it as potential. And potential is not power. Potential is a rumor. The level 2 man says, "I am good. Someone should notice." The strategic man says, "If my skill is not visible, I have not finished the work." This is the death of the silent, competent man. You do not wait to be discovered. You put yourself where proof cannot remain hidden. The place that raised you may not be the place that can crown you. But skill alone is not enough. Skill must become proof, because proof is the language doubters understand. And level 3 is where the unsupported man stops asking people to believe. Level 3, proof. There is a reason people ignore your potential until it becomes proof. Potential costs them nothing to dismiss. Proof creates a cost. When you have no proof, people can doubt you casually. They can laugh casually. They can ignore you casually. They can call your ambition unrealistic and still feel intelligent. But when you have proof, doubt becomes more expensive. Now they are not just judging your dream, they are judging evidence. This is the third level of success. Proof. Most unsupported men waste years trying to be understood. They explain their ambition to family. They defend their dreams to friends. They argue with people who have no authority over the future they are trying to build. This is weakness disguised as communication. Machiavelli would call it a failure of prudence. In The Prince, he writes, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. The world does not study your soul. It studies your signal. It does not measure your pain. It measures your evidence. It does not care how badly you want success. It asks what your wanting has produced. This is not fair." But fairness is not the operating system of power. This is where many men lose years. They want emotional credit for future greatness. They want people to respect the version of them that has not been built yet. They want family to believe. They want friends to understand. They want society to make room. But power does not respond to explanations. Power responds to proof. A man with no proof becomes addicted to talking. He explains because he has no evidence. He argues because he has no results. He seeks validation because he has not built leverage. He wants to be treated like a finished man while still living as an unfinished one. That is why proof is brutal. It ends the debate. It removes the need to be understood. It forces the external world to confront something real. This does not mean everyone will support you. Do not be childish. Some people will resent your proof. Some will ignore it until it benefits them. Some will act as if they always knew you would win. That does not matter. Proof is not built to make people love you. Proof is built to make dismissal costly. That is the hidden mechanism. Without proof, believing in you costs people status. With proof, dismissing you costs them judgment. This is why Machiavelli cared about reputation. A ruler did not merely need private virtue, he needed visible capacity. Signs of strength, public order, victories, symbols, credibility. A ruler who looked weak invited attack before his actual strength was tested. A man works the same way. If you carry no visible proof, people treat you like potential. If you carry visible proof, people treat you like a factor. A man with no proof is a theory. A man with proof becomes a problem reality must answer. So stop asking why they do not believe in you. Ask what evidence you have built that makes disbelief irrational. That is the shift. You do not beg for belief. You build until disbelief becomes expensive. You stop explaining. You start documenting. You stop defending your ambition. You start producing evidence. Proof is not arrogance. Proof is self-defense in a world that respects signals before sincerity. And this is where a man must become colder. Every result must be captured, every skill must be shown, every transformation must leave a record, every win must become a signal, not because you are desperate for applause, but because invisible value is weak value. A body of work is not vanity, it is armor. A portfolio is not decoration, it is a weapon. A public record is not ego. It is proof that your words have weight. The level 3 man stops asking, "Why do they not believe in me?" He starts asking, "What have I built that makes belief unnecessary?" But proof creates a new trap. A man can become visible and still remain trapped inside his own labor. He becomes the talented worker, the respected freelancer, the reliable operator, the one who gets results. But every result still depends on him personally pushing the machine. That is not freedom. That is a better paid cage. The next level is leverage. Level 4, leverage. Leverage begins when a man stops asking, "How do I work harder?" and starts asking, "What can multiply my work when I'm not present?" This is where success stops being effort and becomes architecture. Systems, media, capital, people, processes, distribution, reputation, technology. A man at level 4 no longer only produces, he builds engines that produce. The trap between proof and leverage is pride. A man becomes good at something, then he becomes addicted to doing everything himself. He calls it standards. Sometimes it is fear. He does not trust systems. He does not train people. He does not document processes. He does not use media. He does not capture attention. He does not build assets. He becomes the bottleneck of his own rise. This is one of the most humiliating forms of failure because it looks like strength from the outside. He is busy, he is respected, he is needed, he is competent. People depend on him. But secretly, he has built a prison where every door opens only when he touches it. If he stops, everything stops. If he gets tired, income slows. If he disappears, the machine dies. That is not power. That is dependency with better branding. Machiavelli's The Art of War is useful here because it treats power as organization, not emotion. One passage from The Art of War states, "Good captains never come to an engagement unless necessity compels them or the opportunity calls them." The point is not cowardice. The point is timing. Do not fight every battle. Do not spend force without reason. Do not confuse motion with strategy. Leverage is disciplined force, not more effort, better arrangement. Look at Mr. Beast. Jimmy Donaldson did not begin as a media empire. He began as a young creator uploading into silence. No traditional gatekeeper, no television network, no inherited media machine, no permission, but he studied the mechanism. Titles, retention, thumbnails, audience psychology, scale, reinvestment, distribution. Business Insider describes Mr. Beast as a YouTuber, media personality, businessman, and founder of Beast Industries, a company connected to multiple media channels and ventures. That is not just content creation. That is the climb from proof to leverage. He had to win attention without institutional permission. He treated YouTube like a system to be studied. His first proof was not one lucky upload. It was repeated attention, repeated proof, repeated evidence that he understood the machine better than men who were still waiting to be chosen. The power lesson is simple. Attention becomes power only when it is converted into a system. Most creators want views. Strategic creators build machinery. A video is proof. A channel is leverage. A brand is ownership. That is the hierarchy most men never understand. They want more money from effort. But the more dangerous move is to turn effort into a machine. Leverage is not laziness. Leverage is the intelligent organization of force. At level 1, you sell time. At level 2, you increase the value of time. At level 3, you make value visible. At level 4, you multiply value beyond your personal hours. A YouTube channel is leverage. A newsletter is leverage. A product is leverage. A trained team is leverage. A repeatable sales process is leverage. A reputation that opens doors before you enter the room is leverage. Capital is leverage. Code is leverage. Media is leverage. Intellectual property is leverage. But here is the colder question. Who can switch it off? Because leverage that another man controls is rented power. If your audience exists only on a platform you do not own, you have reach but not full possession. If your income depends on one client, you have cash flow but not security. If your reputation exists only inside one company, you have status but not sovereignty. If your process exists only in your head, you have skill but not a system. Power is not just strength. Power is arrangement. The same force, poorly arranged, exhausts itself. The same force, strategically arranged, multiplies. The level 4 man kills the identity of the heroic worker. He stops trying to prove he can carry everything alone. He starts building what can carry force without him touching every piece. The worker asks, "Did I work hard enough?" The strategist asks, "Did I build something that multiplies power?" That is the shift. Effort is noble only when it moves toward control. Otherwise, effort becomes rented exhaustion. If you are a man who already knows working harder is no longer enough, stop mistaking busyness for ascension. You already know effort matters, but your real problem is that your effort still dies when you stop touching it. If you keep being the entire machine, you will become respected, exhausted, and trapped inside your own competence. Inside Patreon, you get deeper, unfiltered breakdowns on leverage, status, reputation, discipline, and building power without permission, so you can turn effort into structure and structure into control. This is not for passive men looking for comfort. It is for builders who are ready to stop being used by systems and start creating their own. The decision is yours. But leverage still has a master if you do not own the asset. You can use platforms and still be rented. You can build audiences and still be dependent. You can control attention and still not control the ground beneath it. The final level is ownership. Level 5, ownership. Ownership is the highest level because it changes the question. The lower levels ask, what can I earn? Ownership asks, what do I control? Assets, equity, audience, systems, intellectual property, distribution, data, relationships, brand, reputation, capital. Ownership is not about looking rich. It is about reducing dependence. And dependence is the enemy of power. Most men chase money. Machiavelli would call this incomplete. Money matters. Only fools pretend it does not. But money without power can be lost, wasted, captured, manipulated, taxed, or used to make a man soft. Power is deeper than income. Power is control over the conditions that produce income. That is why ownership matters. A man who owns nothing must keep asking for access. Access to employment, access to platforms, access to audiences, access to clients, access to decision makers, access to permission. Ownership reduces the number of doors a man must beg to enter. Machiavelli wrote, "He who causes another to become powerful ruins himself." This is one of the most important lines for understanding ownership. If your labor builds another man's empire while you build no asset of your own, you may be useful, but you are not sovereign. If your audience exists only on a platform you do not control, you have reach, but not full possession. If your reputation exists only inside one company, you are renting identity. If your income depends on one client, one employer, one algorithm, one gatekeeper, you have not built power. You have built exposure. This is where Mr. Beast becomes useful again as a modern example. The lesson is not become a YouTuber. That is too shallow. The lesson is to turn attention into infrastructure. A channel, a company, a product line, a media machine, a brand, a team, a distribution engine, a system that converts attention into owned advantage. This is the move from visibility to control. Not merely being watched, being structurally difficult to remove. Ownership is the level where success becomes defensible, not guaranteed. Defensible. Machiavelli never promised safety. He believed fortune always remains unstable. In The Prince, he writes, "Fortune is the arbiter of one half of our actions, but she still leaves us to direct the other half." That is not optimism. It is responsibility. You do not control everything. Only fools believe that. But you control enough that weakness is not an excuse. Markets will shift, people will betray, platforms will change, employers will cut, friends will disappear, families will doubt. But the man with ownership has built embankments before the flood. The man without ownership merely complains that the water is unfair. Ownership is not about luxury. It is about fewer masters. The level 5 man no longer measures success by applause. He measures it by control. What do I own? What do I influence? What depends on me? What continues when I sleep? What compounds when I am absent? What cannot be taken without a cost? That is the owner's mind. He is not trying to look successful. He is trying to become structurally difficult to remove. The worker wants income. The owner wants control over income-producing structures. That is a different mind, a colder mind, a freer mind. But now we must address the real trap. Most men do not fail because they cannot reach the next level. They fail because the next level requires them to betray the identity that made them comfortable at the current one. Every level demands a death. This is why men stay trapped, not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack ambition, but because each level rewards an identity that becomes dangerous at the next level. The survivor must become a student. The skilled man must become visible. The proven man must become strategic. The strategic man must become an owner, and every transition feels like betrayal. The level 1 man fears losing stability. The level 2 man fears being seen. The level 3 man fears delegating control. The level 4 man fears ownership because ownership exposes him to real responsibility. At each level, fear wears a different mask: practicality, humility, perfectionism, loyalty, patience, being realistic. But sometimes being realistic is just cowardice wearing respectable clothes. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." This is not permission to become dishonorable. It is a warning that conditions change. A strategy that once served survival may betray you when the battlefield changes. The promise you made to your old self may now be the contract keeping you weak. Most men want the rewards of the next level without the identity cost. They want more money without becoming more valuable. They want status without proof. They want leverage without systems. They want ownership without risk. They want respect without visible strength. They want freedom without responsibility. This is why they remain trapped. Machiavelli's realism is brutal here. He does not care what you intended. He cares what your intention produced. He does not ask whether you suffered. He asks whether suffering became discipline. He does not ask whether you were doubted. He asks whether doubt became proof. He does not ask whether you were unsupported. He asks whether isolation became leverage. This is why weak men hate Machiavelli. He removes emotional excuses. He does not deny pain. He denies pain the right to become a permanent alibi. The trap between levels is identity loyalty. You remain loyal to the version of yourself that was once necessary. But the identity that saved you at one level can sabotage you at the next. Survival requires obedience to immediate need. Skill requires discipline. Proof requires visibility. Leverage requires systems. Ownership requires control. Each level has a different law. If you bring the old law into the new level, you lose. The survival man who enters skill still thinks short-term. The skilled man who enters proof still hides. The proven man who enters leverage still tries to do everything himself. The leveraged man who enters ownership still fears responsibility. This is why success is not a ladder. It is a series of identity executions. You are not climbing because you are inspired. You are climbing because remaining the same has become too expensive. That is Machiavellian growth. Not comfort, necessity, not affirmation, pressure, not dreams, structure. A man rises when the cost of his old identity becomes greater than the fear of the new one. Success is not one thing, it is a hierarchy of identity, proof, and control. Level 1, survival. You sell time to stay alive, necessary but dangerous if permanent. Survive, but do not worship survival. Level 2, skill. You become useful, You increase your value. But hidden skill is still weak. Skill is escape only when it becomes visible value. Level 3. Proof. You stop asking to be believed. You document results. You build evidence. Proof is the language doubters understand. Level 4. Leverage. You multiply output through systems, media, capital, people, and distribution. Effort becomes power only when it compounds. Level 5. Ownership. You control assets, audiences, equity, systems, or intellectual property. The highest form of success is control over what produces success. This is the hierarchy most men never escape. Not because they cannot, because they keep trying to carry the same identity into every battlefield. Machiavelli's warning is clear. Human nature does not reward innocence. Power does not wait for permission. Fortune does not protect the unprepared. Reputation is not built from intention. It is built from visible force, repeated proof, and controlled outcomes. You were trained to ask, "Who believes in me?" A stronger man asks, "What have I built that no longer requires belief?" You were trained to ask, "Who will support me?" A stronger man asks, "What leverage can I create without support?" You were trained to ask, "When will they notice?" A stronger man asks, "What proof makes me impossible to ignore?" You were trained to ask, "How do I become successful?" A stronger man asks, "What level am I trapped in, and what identity must die for me to rise?" That is the question. Not motivation, not comfort, not hope. Level, identity, control. If this channel speaks to the part of you that is done waiting for permission, subscribe. Not for motivation, for realism, for strategy, for the study of power, discipline, reputation, solitude, leverage, and becoming undeniable when no one is coming. Machiavelli did not write for men who wanted to feel innocent. He wrote for men who needed to see clearly. And once a man sees clearly, he has only two choices: return to illusion or rise without permission. Build anyway.